All right, welcome back to chapter two. So, something I wanted to talk about that we missed in in doing this was I'm like doing all this off the top of my head and not writing anything down. So, what I'd like to do is show you a quick mock-up in Google Docs. I would use Miro or Lucidchart to one of them, but of course they cost for those. And with Miro, you do get a couple diagrams for free, but you quickly outrun that, or you're scrolling left and right because you've got so much stuff crammed into one document trying to make it work. It is, of course, much better. It does connections. It's got a lot of built-in tools and diagram features and things and templates that you wouldn't normally get with like Google Docs, but Google Docs can get the job done. So of course, right away there's a hidden feature, and I put it in the actual document on Medium, how to get to the Google Drawings. Because when you go to new document, you go to More, and then Drawings is there. So one of the first things I did was inserted some tables and made myself a nice little diagram representing the schema of the data. So you see here, I went ahead and diagrammed out the tables. We've got our my users table, our family table, and our family members table, and I put in some nice information. I mean, I want to know a description. I want to know what they're for, how the field gets updated, maybe the data types in here. In this case, the actual field name, is it a primary key? I mean, is this a foreign key? And see, I did that on all of the tables. Like crucial here is like the family members table, which links, the users, my users, to the family. And of course, note in here that family ID, if I can spell it correctly, the family ID and the user ID are both foreign keys, and I drew little arrows, which isn't easy in Google. They don't make like a great tool to go out over and up. You have to like draw lines and connect them. And there's not maybe there's snap in here but I haven't found it yet. So it's rough, right? But it works. It allows you to draw your diagrams, and that's one of the key things. And then some of it, when I'm going through the actual app in FlutterFlow, it does have this nice thing where you can draw out, a flow chart because your app is basically a flow chart when you're doing the low code portion of it. But sometimes you miss some things in there. So I went ahead and drew it out here because in here there's no parameters. I just kind of like get an idea of the flow. So I want to do a sign up. Supabase is going to do the account creation, and then the next step would be I'm going to insert this newly created user into my users. Now, what I need to do I didn't think about is, so if this is like a child sign up for it, are there any family invites? And I don't have that family invites table yet, but so if we had a family, I would make another table called invites, and you would like invite by email address, right? So if this person's email address is on an invite table, the family would have like a password set just to keep the family secure, right? So ask for the family password if it's good, right? Down here to correct. Good, yes, they'll join the family and move on. If not, ask for the password again, and I'll have to figure out something here, only ask so many times before you sign the user out, make them have to sign in again, or give some kind of delay in there so someone just can't sit there and keep trying to crack a password to get into a family. And of course, if there are not any invites, go ahead and do a create family. Ask them to set up a family, give the name of the family, and get all that set up. All right, so just pretty simple logic flow there. But without that, of course, maybe you come back later, you can't remember what's going on. You have it here to document. Maybe you want to share the project. Maybe you're passing a project on to somebody who wants to take it over. You'll have this here for them to use or for yourself to come back to. So yeah, don't forget to document. And of course, with Google's great. You could do Excel if you do not Excel. You could do the Google Sheets, and you could put if you find issues you need to take care of. You could keep notes in there. You could do a lot of stuff to help manage the project itself. There are some great project manager tools out there that are free as well. But you can kind of do a lot of it in Google Docs and keep it all in one place. All right, go ahead and shrink this down. So what I wanted to cover in this little tutorial here was this row level security. So I'm going to start off with my users table, and right now I don't have any. Right, so right now it says I can disable or I can do a new policy. Well, I want to do a new policy, right? So they have these policy from templates, but every time I go to use these things, they never seem to work. But so we're talking about my users table. When we're talking about reading the table. Really, the only person who should be able to read that table is the user who owns that record, right? But anybody can insert into it. but they have to be authenticated. So there's a couple options here. We have anonymous access to tables. We also have authenticated. Now, by authenticated, it means that they'll have a token, JSON token from Supabase that identifies them, which means they're okay to be able to insert into that table. So right here, enable insert access for authenticated users only. So it gives us a template. And I've had some issues with Supabase. I'm going to go ahead and highlight and copy this because a lot of times it doesn't work. So I say use this template. See, and it didn't put it in here. So of course, actually, it did. It did do it correctly. So what we're doing is enable insert for authenticated. You got to give it a description. Right? Allowed operations insert. Right. So for insert, anybody, because there's nothing to verify against yet. The user's not there, but we want to make sure they're authenticated. So if you look down this list, you have anonymous, authenticated, and then some other types that are in there. And PG Sodium, just for encryption for the Sodium library. So we want to be authenticated. The check expression is actually where we would normally use the expression. And this is our expression where we would run a query against a token to make sure that the user is allowed to do it. Right. So with check, and so by default, you just want it to be true. Because in this case, there's nothing to check against because there's no record in there yet. So we're going to go ahead and say review. And as you can see here, it says create policy, and enable insert for candidate users public on my table, my users right there, right? As permissive for insert authenticated. All right, and it says with check true. Go ahead and hit save policy. All right, so there we go. And that's the first policy. All right, so now we can insert. Now let's see here. One of our things is when I sign in, I'm going to have an update to table, right? I want to put a new user into the table, right? So not update the timestamp when they last signed in. So we'll go here again. We'll say get started quickly. Let's see. Enable update access for user based on their email. It's close. I'm not going to use their email. I'm going to use their user ID. There's always a chance someone's email address. They may want to change your email address, but the ID can stay the same. The Supabase supports that, the ability to change an email address but keep the same user ID. So I'm going to use this template. So it does work out here, but or see where it says email, use email. Now, we're going to go back to my diagrams since I have those diagrams now. Let's see here, which is good and helpful. So let's see here, my drive. All right, schema. Pull this back up here. So in my users table, there we go. I have a field called user ID and my email address. So I would have to update it if I was using it anyways. So let's go back to Supabase right here. So where JWT. Now, if you notice here, what it is the JWT is actually a JSON object, right? Well, this nomenclature, the dash and double arrow, allows you to pull out a particular field off the token. So that's the email address in a token and the user ID. Now, I believe, actually, let me see here. Let's go back to view templates because there is see, auth.uid equals user ID. So this is based on their user ID. So we know that that is a way to get their user ID. So we're going to go back a little bit and we're going to see they also use it here, enable insert access user. So same thing, auth that user ID. But if you need to, you can get, by this example here, you can get parameters from the token. And if you need to, maybe another tutorial I'll show you how to take a look at the token once we're signed in, and we can take that token and we can see what properties are inside that token. But for now, really the only one I care about, since I'm not using email address, is I'm going to take this, I'm going to use it, but I'm going to modify it to work for my case. Since I copied that other line out, we're going to say auth.user equals, and then in my table, I called it, look at that, user ID. So that works. We'll go back to here. That's it. So with these two, so the using expression, it says here, this expression will be added to the queries that refer to the table in a row level security enabled. Rows for which the expression returns true will be visible. Any rows for which the expression returns false or null will not be visible to the user in a select and will not be available for modification in an update or delete. Such rows are silently suppressed, no errors reported. And the expression will be used to insert and update queries against the table in row level security is enabled. Only rows for which it's basically the same thing. Now it says note that this expression is evaluated against the proposed new contents of the row, not the original. All right, so this here with the check is to make sure that you're not updating that row and changing the user ID to a different, an alternative user ID. You can only change it to your own. So you'll want this in here. So this is the using, and this is the check. So this is like the before and the after. So just make sure you can change that row and just make sure that you're changing the row to the valid data. All right. And oh, target roles. Well, we want to make sure the person is authenticated. All right, there we go. So now they're all, only an authenticated person with auth.uid equals user ID. Go ahead and hit review. What save? Oh, and it's giving me to fail to create character does not exist. Oh, so I did this as a user. I did my user ID as a varchar and variable length string instead of a UUID. So I'm gonna look up another screen here. Char2 UUID. We're gonna need to do some conversion. All right, give me one second. Cast. Let's see here. Sorry about this, but I forgot to do this. Usually you can do a colon colon. We'll see if that works. I believe that's how you do it, but let me make sure. Because you can also do. See, Postgres is a little better at handling UIDs than MySQL. MySQL, every time you have to do these crazy conversion parameters and wrap it every time, which can get quite annoying. Oh, here we go. Oh, let's see. This looks like someone said you could just wrap it in this function. We'll see if it likes that. Ah, no, oh, no, that did not work. Now, we can do this. Go the other way around. We'll just do it this way. Convert that to text. Oh, does not exist. Failed to, wait a minute. Peach policy type test. Actually, I don't even type test does not. Oh, text. Yeah, typo. Text. Obviously, it could have been avoided if I had just used varchar. Again, I mean, not varchar, not varchar. Used UUID for the type of the table, but it depends. I'm not sure how it handles third-party auth, and maybe I want to use some third-party authentication, which comes in. Like I said, there's some authentication brands that use their own type of identifier, which is not a UUID. But that'll work. So now we look at this table. And of course, underneath here, we go to authentication, we go to policies. It does show us that our two policies that are on this table, enable insert for authentication and enable update for users based on email. So that is great. All right. Well, actually, I need to edit the name of that. I didn't use that based on user ID. Make sure that's correct. There we go. All right. So another table we're going to really need to look at is the family table, right? Of course, I've got none on here, so let's go ahead and a new policy. Now, this course is a little more complicated, right? So when we talk about inserting a table, we need to be able to, again, this is a part where like almost any authenticated user should be able to insert a table insert a row into here. Now, the reason is, of course, they sign up. There's nothing to validate against. So we're going to go ahead and enable insert for authenticated users only. We're going to do the same thing right there. Now, anybody can insert into this table. All right. Now, let's think about, like, is there ever, so if we go back and look at this table, all right, we have created and name. So the only thing I can think of is possibly that maybe the family name would be updated. So in order for someone to update the name of the family, they want to change it, it's going to be a little more complicated because they have to be a member of that family. So we have this family members table. So what we're going to have to do is basically a query that checks to see, if this person is a member of that family. And this is one of the reasons why I didn't, from one of my own applications, I ended up making my own API backend and use my own database system because it starts getting quite complicated when you start looking at multiple queries and you get pretty in depth, and and then it gets very 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 complicated. So I've got some examples, and just give me 1 second while I pull up some more complicated policies. Org ID is no. Could have swore just earlier I was looking at a policy that would match this, because what it is we kind of have to do like I said, a join in here. So we want to make sure that the user ID is in a set of data. All right. So if we go back, we know we have based on the other one there. So let's go ahead and do a new policy and get started quickly. And we're gonna, of course, this one here, we don't want to do it based on their email address, but we want to use their user ID. So let's just grab that real quick there. All right, go ahead and all right. So let's start with that. And of course, we need to go back to text again. But so to think about it, the expression here. So first we need to check is we need to get a list of the families that this person belongs to. All right, so which is this table, family members. So we need to get, of course, the user ID. So this is going to take a few joins to get all this information, and sometimes actually may be easier to build this query inside of like the query builder, and then once you get it right, because it gives you much more feedback. It's much easier than hitting, get this little error box up there, then you want to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this, and we're going to go, yes, we're going to discard. Let's go over here to the SQL editor, and we're going to do a new query, right? So what we need to find is, of course, we can only update our organization ID. So let's start with, select star from, and then we're going to do family members where, and of course, it'll be our user ID. We'll say user ID equals, and then just off the top of my head. Now, of course, to get the correct user ID, and actually, we may need to start straight in another table. We may start here, start from users or my users, where user ID equals, because this is the user ID from the auth table, and then we're just going to put a placeholder in here. This will be the authentication ID that comes from the database, but then we're going to need to join it to our family members table, right? So on, we'll say family members dot user ID equals my users dot ID. All right, so that connects the two together. Now, what we want from here is not select star. We want family members dot, and then we're going to say family ID. All right, so this is going to give us all the family IDs that belong to this member. So now when we go back to our, let's see here, copy that. All right, we'll just, I think if we execute it, it'll, oh, see, I did have an error in here. Good thing I executed it before I copied this over from users. Oh, yeah, need to get this where down here. There we go. Where, oh, I need to put my users dot. It needs to know which one I'm talking about because it's in multiple tables, so it becomes, as it says here, ambiguous. It doesn't know which table it's coming from. All right, no rows returned, of course, because that's just some crazy parameter I came up with, right? So let's go back to our table editor. All right, so now we've got here, and we'll go to family members. Actually, we're going to family. All right, so row level auth policy, and then we're going to do a new policy. Start quickly. We have to remember off the top of our head that update access auth.uid. So auth.uid. Just remember that. That's how we get our UID. So we're going to say update here, and then we're going to paste this in here, and then we're going to change this part right here to auth.uid, and then it's a function, and then to text. We want that to be text. Now, this is just a select. Now, of course, where, and then we need to say the family ID, where family ID in. So what it's going to do is it's going to take the family ID that's coming in. It's going to be if it's in this list. It's going to be if it's true, then it's going to allow the update or allow allow the update of the table, allow updating the old data, and then of course verify the new data. All right, hit review. Let's see if this one works. Oh, syntax error at where did I? Oh, I don't think we need to where. I think we just need, sorry, we just need to know family ID in. Nope, family ID. Oh, column family ID does not exist. And, oh, we're in the family table, so of course it doesn't exist. It's just it's just called ID. So I was thinking of the family members table. All right, because this is actually going to be very similar to the family members table. So let's go ahead and just save that. I copied that off to my clipboard real quick. There it goes. All right, got that more complicated policy done. Very good. All right, so let's go back to table editor. All right, so now, let's a couple more things we want to make sure of. Back in, I didn't even think about it, but top of my head, we don't have. Let's look at these policies. So this is for insert, this is for update, and then new policy. Let's see here. So by default, row level is turned on, so no one should be able to delete because we don't have delete policy. So I think, yeah, we're okay there. All right, so let's go. Yeah, sorry about that. Just a little sidetrack squirrel moment. All right, now we're going to go to family members. All right. Okay, now so family members. So if you're going to be a member of a family, you need to, number one, it has to be your ID, right? So you want to insert into this family member, and you can only insert your ID. You don't need to be inserting somebody else's ID. And of course, it does lead to some issues with like are you joining a it's harder to say like are you allowed to insert this, and what if someone modified the family ID and you inserted yourself into somebody else's family? So there is some issues there. Of course, that could be we can get around that by maybe even make an additional column in there that says is approved. Right. So with this additional column, if someone tries to join you as a family, and then the parent signs in and say there's approval, if someone wants to join your family, do you say yes or no? So there is some ways around this. But this is, of course, one of the limitations of this, and just more of a thought for logic on how to do it. So authenticated users only. Let's just go ahead and start with there. We want to make sure everybody's authenticated. But, all right, so we want to make sure that, so we're inserting in a user ID. Oop. So, so we're inserting into this table. We want to make sure that this will be a little bit more, a little easier, where we're just going to say where their user ID text equals. Well, actually, we need to get their actual user ID based off that. So we're gonna we're user ID equals. So we'll go ahead and just go back here. Come on, in, which is fine. For this is their authenticated is in, and we're gonna select. We're gonna say my users dot user ID. So if someone's inserting this table, of course, they're going to insert their their ID, right? So one of the fields in the tables is called, let's get this out here, sorry, confuse myself sometimes here. So they're going to insert in a value for user ID. Now we want to make sure that that ID is in a query from my users where, there we go. All right, so we can only insert into users, this new table here, family members, right? If the user ID we're trying to insert belongs to this current user. So where my users.user ID equals the authenticated ID. All right, so that gets us that. So now only, there we go, say policy. Oop. Let's see here, PG policies missing from calls. Oh, did I? It's missing from calls, but I see a from calls. And select my user's ID from my users. Did I spell something? Oh, I did. I did. I had a typo. Look at that right there. My users and my users. Review. Save. There we go. Now you can only insert into that family now if you are, if you're yourself. You can't insert random people into there. So that helps. All right. And then we're going to need another similar policy. Actually, let me go back and grab this policy because it could be useful in making the next one. Because we only want to view a user can only get from this policy, get from here. So we're going to say get started quickly, read. And well, we don't want read access to everybody, but we'll just go ahead and start there. All right, so we're going to say authenticated, right? We only want authenticated users to read from this table, but we also want to, you only want to be able to read your own families. So you can only read where your user ID is in in the table. So make sure that you get your user ID, which is what this select statement does. Get your, user ID. And if that user ID is in a table, boom, now you can read that data. You don't need to be reading all the other people and whatever families are in. So that locks that down. All right, so that takes care of that. Nice and easy. And now we have some row level security on the table. So you can see the security doing it in this method. It's nice for base. It's great. It gives you all these functionality, to quickly make a database and connect it to a front end like FlutterFlow and not have to worry about some of the back end stuff and managing it all. It's just got to get through the row level security. And I've never worked with it on a large scale. Like when the data gets really large and you get a lot of requests, you just got to imagine that unlike normal SQL engine, when you normally do an SQL, you ask for a query, you get the whole data back. But in this way, we have to check every row. So I'm curious of how well it performs when you have row level security enabled and you have large amount of rows. But hopefully in a database like this application, it should never be many. Like especially once tours are done or aged out, we can archive them out, or we can make sure that we only, show stuff within the last 30, 60, 90 days, something like that, to keep and limit the total amount of data coming back from the database so that we don't fill up the burden the server too much. And also, when you think about a JavaScript-based application, you don't want to be pumping tons of data into it because the end user's browser or phone, whatever they're using this browser on, it's got to be able to handle this much data in its memory. So we do want to try to limit that. All right, so that'll be it for today. I just wanted to go over like the basis of getting these tables protected. And when we look at the views, so views themselves actually don't need to be protected. So what'll happen on a view when we go to view a family member, it actually use the it'll because we joined in this the two tables, family and family members, right? So it's going to use the policies from both of these to be able to see if you're allowed to see that row. So and that's where it actually gets way more complex because now you've got to think about the policy here and here to make sure you can see what's coming out of here. All right, that's it. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you. Have a good one.